Do you know, can I tell you something, right? I am proper cultured. Listen to this. No word of a lie, I am. I like musicals, right? I generally love musicals. And my favourite musical is Les Mis. Now, I can't say the full name because it will come out really South London, but let's do it, Les Miserables. But it's not like, you don't say it like that. You say it sort of Frenchy, so La Miserable, like something like that. But I can't say it like that, so other people can. But Les Mis has a musical, a book, a film, and a 3-part BBC series. I think it's 6-part, but it might be 3-part. I can't remember at the top of my head, right? So it's a really famous play, musical, book, and so forth. And one of the reasons I like this book, because it has many themes in it. And one of the themes is unfulfilled love. Right, so check it out. There's a character called Ebony. She's a young, pretty woman, and she's desperately in love with the main character. But the main character is in love with someone else. Classic, innit? And so basically, when Ebony comes on the stage or the screen or the book, she's always singing really sad songs. So without him, my world doesn't keep on turning, but without me, his world does keep on turning. She sings songs like that. And the problem is that every time Ebony is on the scene or in the play or in the book, that's all she's doing. She's singing about this unfulfilled love. And do you know what happens? She dies. So basically, the book, the play, is set in 1830s France, which is the Second French Revolution, without going into too much of a history thing. So the Second French Revolution. And she dies on the battleground. And she dies singing about unfulfilled love to this man. And it's quite sad. And that's it. Her love is unfulfilled and she dies. But I reckon here, as Christians, people who are believing and trusting in Jesus, that he died for our sin and rose again, we can be spiritual Ebonies. Now check it out. I want us to read Matthew 5 verse 6. But before we read verse 6, let's start from verse 1. Now Jesus saw the crowds. He went up on the mountainside and sat down. His disciples came to him and he began to teach them. So I want you to picture the scene here for a minute. So you've got Jesus' disciples and the crowd. Right? Two different distinct types of people. Jesus' disciples are people who believe and trust in him. They're Christians. The crowd are people that are interested. And they've seen Jesus doing all these marvellous healings around Galilee and Judea. They've seen him preach in the synagogues, and they're following him. So there's two different types of people. People who believe and trust in Jesus, and people who are interested. Yeah, so you have to keep that in mind, and let's carry on. This is the problem of using your Bible as a phone. You get text during the service. You don't want that, do you? So he said, "Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. Blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Blessed are the merciful, for they will be shown mercy. Blessed are the pure in heart, for they will see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they will be called children of God. Blessed are those who persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven." Now the first two Beatitudes, if you want to check it out quickly, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven, is a present. What I mean by that is it's now. So if you're poor in spirit now, which all Christians are, poor in spirit meaning spiritually skint, you know that you can't out of your own efforts get right with God. Yours is the kingdom of heaven now. And we look at verse, I think it's 10, I believe. If we look at that quickly, it might be verse 8. No, verse 10. Blessed are those who are persecuted because of righteousness, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. So, we're seeing that's another present. If you're persecuted for the kingdom of righteousness, blessed are you, and yours is the kingdom of heaven now. So we're seeing there is a now to the kingdom of heaven. And the kingdom of heaven is basically where God rules and is king over his people. And we see the kingdom of heaven now on this earth in the local church. So God ruling over us, over our lives as Christians. But we see now also, as we carry on through the Beatitudes, there's a now and future. So if we look at one of the Beatitudes here, verse 4, blessed are those who mourn, for they will be comforted. So there's a now and there's a future. So Christians are characterized by people who mourn, who are sad. Blessed are those who are meek, for they will inherit the earth. Now, I don't think Jesus is saying, you must be like this. I think Jesus is saying, if you're in the kingdom and you believe in me, you will be like this. And think about how upside down this is, right? Upside down, back to front, however you want to call it. Jesus is basically saying, blessed are you who are sad, because you will be comforted. So blessed are you who are sad now. Blessed are you who are meek now, who don't go on the attack or the defence when people who attack you, for you will inherit the earth. And then we'll look at R1. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. Now, I want us to go through this phrase by phrase, right? So, first of all, blessed. Now, I don't know about you, but blessed is one of those words where I think I know what it means, but I don't. Does anyone else got that? Like, you go around, oh, I've had a blessed day. Well, what does that mean? It means probably, I had a good time with someone, or a nice pint down the pub, or Arsenal won 3-0. I don't know. What does that mean, like, blessed? What blessed means here is fullness, wholeness, happy. So Jesus is basically saying, happy are you who mourn now, for you will be comforted. Happy are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for you will be filled. And it's not that sort of happy when you see your favourite football team or you go out for a lovely meal where you get that spring of happiness for the evening and then it goes. It's a continued, sustained happiness. So the word blessed can also mean flourishing. Flourishing. So flourishing are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness. So that important date in all our diaries, February the 14th. Well, what is that? Valentine's Day, that's it. I bought Jazz some flowers, and I always buy tulips if I'm buying Jazz flowers, but Jazz always says I don't buy her flowers enough. But I buy her tulips when I do buy her flowers, right? Because tulips are my favourite flowers. The problem with tulips is, I know it's bad, isn't it? I buy, I like these, I give them to my wife. Doesn't make sense. But I bought Jazz tulips on the 14th of February, and the issue with tulips, they're like that. Yeah, and they're pretty and all that, but they don't really go like that. But these tulips did. As soon as Jazz put them in the vase, which is a plastic bottle with some water in, by the way. It's not like a really nice vase, that's what it is. She made it herself. I say you should start a YouTube channel. That's what it is. But when Jazz put it in the vase, right, they sploomed. Literally, I couldn't believe it. I'd never seen tulips go from that to that. And they filled the whole room with their beauty and their awe and their smell. They were flourishing. In a similar way, this is what Jesus is saying in these Beatitudes. Flourishing are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness. You're meant to bloom. But I guarantee as Christians, right, people who believe and trust in Jesus, who are part of God's kingdom, who have these feelings of mourning over sin, who have these feelings of wanting to put other people first, who have these feelings of hunger and thirsting, I guarantee at times we don't think that's a flourishing life. Do we? Our idea at times of a flourishing life could be happy relationships, good marriages, lovely food and eating lovely food, keeping fit. But Jesus is doing the opposite. It's an upside down kingdom. He's saying, flourishing are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Now we're going through this phrase by phrase. So when I say flourishing now, I've replaced that with blessed. But blessed can mean flourishing, proper happy life. It means a similar thing all the way through. So blessed / flourishing are you who hunger and thirst. Now, this is peak. Peak in South London means next level. So let me try and interpret slang for you. It means next level means like, oh my days sort of thing. Blessed are you, flourishing are you who hunger and thirst. This is completely lopsided. Happy are you when you're hungering and thirsting. Do you know that a few months ago, I was watching the news, and Syria, there's still a civil war going on, I think. Very sad. But one of the things that the news people do when they're in these conflict and war zones is that they zoom the camera around to people who are in desperate need. And it zoomed the camera around to people, to a group of women and children who their fathers and brothers had all been killed in the war, and they're hungry. And they don't look flourishing. It actually looks very harrowing. Their faces are disfigured, they're getting pot bellies, the kids are crying, the mums are distressed just because they can't feed their kids and give them even a bit of bread. It's a harrowing situation, and you think to yourself, thank God I'm not there. Honestly, it's a selfish thing to think, but you do. So it's harrowing to hunger and thirst, right? And some of you might have hungered and thirsted in here, right? And it's not a nice feeling. But Jesus is saying, flourishing are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Because the deep thing about hungering and thirsting, right, is if those desires ain't satisfied, you die. Naturally, so if you're hungering for food and you're thirsting for water and you don't get that, you die. But this is how upside down God's kingdom is when we're Christians. It's actually part of our blessed life, a flourishing life, to hunger and thirst. But I guarantee we wonder and at times even doubt whether that's true. We wonder and even doubt whether our hungering and thirsting is a flourishing life. But hungering and thirsting for what? And we see here it says righteousness. So blessed, flourishing are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness. Now, righteousness again is another one of those words where if you're anything like me, maybe you're not, maybe you're much more cleverer than me, holier than me, I don't know. But it's one of those words again that I take for granted. Like, oh, I know what righteousness means. It means doing the right thing, don't it? Well, it does. But in the Bible, right, righteousness can mean a number of different things. And I think here, Jesus is meaning it to mean three different things. So remember, you've got the crowd and Jesus' disciples both listening in. And I think that's key to what this word righteousness means now, right? And when Jesus says, flourishing, blessed are you who hunger and thirst for righteousness, he means three different things of righteousness. Here's the first one. Here we go. Flourishing are you who hunger and thirst to be right with God and have a deep relationship with him. So flourishing are you who hunger and thirst for being right with God and having a deep relationship with him. Now, as Christians, we're already right with God through our faith in Jesus Christ, through what he's done on the cross. We believe he died for our sin and resurrected, and that puts us in a right relationship with God. But throughout the Bible, we see that this right relationship with God connotates relationship. It's not just a legal standing. Sorry, Jazz, to use you again, but if I'm married to Jazz, and you never saw me speak to Jazz, you never saw me spend time with her, and you just saw me ignore her, and I said to you, I'm in a right relationship with my wife. You'd be like, no, you're not, Shane, you're in the laugh. You're not in the right relationship with your wife, mate, tell me. And it's a similar thing with God. If we don't desire and love, hunger and thirst to have a deeper relationship with God, we've got to ask ourselves, are we in the right relationship with God? Because as Christians, we will have that hunger and thirst to be right with God and to have a deep relationship with God. Now, if you could turn with me to Psalm 42 quickly. You don't have to turn there. It might be helpful if you do, but don't worry if you can't, or if you just want to stay in Matthew 5, that's completely up to you. It's not the end of the world. But Psalm 42, starting at verse 1. Right? Now listen to this. Throughout the Psalms, David and the sons of Korah and the different sort of psalmists write about their relationship with God and going deeper with God. So here we go, verse 1. As the deer pants for streams of water, so my soul pants for you, my God. My soul thirsts for you, for the living God. Where can I go and meet with God? This whole psalm, right, is people taking the mick at the sons of Korah. They're going, where is your God now? You trust in God, you're an idiot. And they're persecuting him. And his response, the sons of Korah, whether they were a group of people or one person, I don't know, is to cry out to God and hunger and thirst for God and know that his thirst for righteousness can only be quenched by God. Sons of Korah are in the right relationship with God and they want to go deeper with God, especially when they're in desperate situations at desperate times, which he is in. It's a bit like this, right? Let me give a modern day analogy if it helps. There's a famous dog, and Jen follows this dog. It's called Buxton. She follows her on Instagram, no word of a lie. She does, look, I told you. He's famous. This dog has like 500-600 followers on Instagram, and I looked after him once. So that makes me famous by looking after this dog. So I took this dog, his name's Buxton, out for a walk on a hot summer's day last summer around the park for about an hour. And by the time I got him back to the office, he was panting heavily. And he would be. And I don't have a dog, so I probably could have done other things to help him not pant like that, but that's another story. But as soon as I got him in the office, I gave him some water, and he gobbled it up in no time at all. In a similar way, we hunger and thirst for God like that, to have a deeper relationship with him, to be right with God, and to have a deeper relationship with God. However, I think at times, if you're anything like me, we wonder and even doubt whether our relationship with God can go deeper. And that misdirects our hunger and thirst. So, around my area, right, they're digging up the road. And so the buses that used to go straight down now can't go straight down because they're digging up the road. So they have to go direct, and it goes all like this. And it goes miles away from where it's meant to go. It's misdirected. In a similar way, when we go into feelings of doubt and wondering whether our hunger and thirst can ever be satisfied for God, our hunger and thirst gets misdirected to other things. That's what I think. And think in your mind now, how does your hunger and thirst to know God more get misdirected? It's pretty peak. I think it could be get misdirected into relationships with other people, or maybe even to other things. I don't know. But as Christians, as part of God's kingdom, we hunger and thirst to have a deeper relationship with God. But when we wonder and at times even doubt whether that would be filled, we get misdirected. The second thing righteousness means in this bit is this: right life, living righteously. So I think here Jesus is saying this: flourishing are you who hunger and thirst to live righteously. I think that's the second thing it is meaning here. I wonder, have you ever done this? So you might have a certain sin in your life, right? I don't know, it could be gossiping, drinking too much on the Friday night, thinking bad thoughts, watching things you shouldn't, lying, cheating. It could be anything, right? And you thought to yourself, I'm going to sort this out. So what you do, you ring your pastors or whatever and think, can you keep me accountable on this? Then you ring other church members and go, yeah, I'm struggling with this, can you keep me accountable? And then you ring other people and go, can you pray for me in this? And then you get your Bible open and you start reading passages to do with this sin, whether it's gossiping, stealing, cheating, whatever. And you start thinking about these passages and asking the Holy Spirit to really change your heart and apply God's word to your life. And you do this, and for a while, you start defeating that sin. And then a couple of weeks later, you fall on it again. And then you fall on it again, and then you go through the same motions. It's like a big hamster wheel. Let me give you one encouragement. That's hungering and thirsting. You're hungering and thirsting to destroy this sin and to live righteously for God. However, the second thing is this. I think at times we wonder and even doubt whether us hungering and thirsting for a righteous life can ever be filled. And again, that misdirects our desires. The third thing that righteousness means here is hunger. Blessed are you who hunger and thirst for God to put the world right. Now, what do I mean by that? Blessed are you who hunger and thirst to see God put the world right. Now, the world is a pretty mess. 49 people. Yesterday there was a big march in London with loads of people with different opinions on the Brexit issue are clashing. We live in a divided country. in your own life, you might see evil happen to you. Broken relationships, people betraying you and so forth. And you just have to turn on the news to see all sorts of terrible stuff. I know, son, it is terrible, isn't it? Yeah, I know. And Jesus is saying, flourishing are you who hunger and thirst to see God put this world right. Is anyone called Pete here, by the way? Great. Here's my mate Pete. Now, this is a real story, but I've changed the name. So, as you know, I'm a missionary on my estate in Vauxhall, and I meet a lot of people. I chat to a lot of people, whether it be in the pubs, whether it be in the football pitches, whether it be in their doorstep. You know, I'm one of those annoying Christians that just ends up everywhere. So, oh, it's you again. Yeah, hi. So Pete is here. And I was chatting to Pete, and I went, yeah, Pete, what's going on? He went, yeah, I'm cool, man. And I went, Pete, let me ask you one question. Why don't you want to become a Christian? What stops you from becoming a Christian? That was my question to him. So I have a relationship with Pete already. I chat to him a lot. We chat mostly about politics and faith, and he's really big on his politics. But this time I managed to get the first question. And Pete went to me, well, Shane, the reason why I won't become a Christian, because there's so much evil and suffering in the world. Okay. Now, being a missionary, I have questions and answers which are not flippant, because I'd work with this person for the next few months answering those questions. But the sermon's not about that today. Pete has a point. That's what I want to bring out. Pete is hungering and thirsting to see the world right. That's what he's doing, but he's lost hope. And he's turned away from God, and is now just in a mire of metaphysical whatever sort of ideas of philosophical rubbish, basically. It's not rubbish, but well, it is. But it's just all over the place. But Pete does have a point. It's that he is hungering and thirsting to see God put the world right, and it's not getting right. But he has lost hope. And may I say, if I'll be bold enough, maybe there's a part of us that can be like Pete. The deepest part of us. Where sometimes we go before God and go, why is this happening? A bit like Job. Job did the same thing. He went before God and it's like, I don't get this. I don't get why I've lost all my family, all my money, all my wealth. I don't get this. I ain't sinned at all. I've lost everything. Just give me counsel with God. He hungered and thirst, Job did. And in a similar way, we can hunger and thirst to see God put the world right as well. However, we might lose heart and hope at times that he will. Last thing, we're going through this phrase by phrase. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness. And we've seen righteousness could mean three different things, especially with the crowd listening in. For they will be filled. Now, this is the last bit we're looking at today. Blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they will be filled. It's a future again. For they will be filled. So it's a future tense. Today we're blessed because we hunger and thirst for righteousness. In the future, when God's kingdom comes back fully, we will be filled. Now picture this, right? As Christians here today, we do hunger and thirst, whether it's on a small scale or on a big scale. We hunger and thirst for righteousness. And at times, our hunger and thirst can get misdirected because we think we're not going to be filled. That righteousness is not going to be filled. It can get misdirected to anything. But Jesus is saying here, if we're part of God's kingdom, trusting in Jesus, it will be filled. And I want you to picture the scene for a minute, right? All through the Gospels, especially Matthew, Mark and Luke, Jesus talks about the second time he comes back and how he'll have a feast from people from the east to the west. East to the west will come around with Abraham, Isaac and Jacob at the end of time, and they'll be filled, eating lovely, beautiful food. However, I don't think Jesus just means food there, like physical food. I think he's meaning spiritual as well. When he talks about it, I believe, in Matthew 14, and he talks about it again in Matthew 22 or 23, I think it's 22, and he talks about it again in the Gospel of Luke. He talks about this huge feast where his people from past, present, and future will be with him. Every Christian, from the shopkeeper to the cleaner to the greatest missionary or pastor, will be with him, and they will see Jesus face to face. You will be filled. Imagine, just come with me for a minute, for 30, 40, 50 seconds, 60 seconds, maybe 120 seconds, I don't know. And think about that time you will stand, because this will happen, that you will stand before Jesus and sit down with that feast. You're going to be filled with righteousness. Your relationship with God will go deeper. I guarantee it when you're seeing Jesus face to face, because it says in Corinthians is that we see Jesus a bit blurry now, like through a blurry mirror. But then we'll see Jesus. And we'll be filled. It's because that longing to be right and have a deep relationship with God will be filled. Then we'll be perfected. So that longing to be righteous and to live a righteous life will be filled. And then the world will be put right. It says in Revelation that when God comes back with his holy city and he judges the living and the dead, and his city comes down to earth and he makes a new heavens and new earth, there'll be no mourning, no tears, no crying, no nothing like that. And we will be filled. Right? And that gives me so much joy, because I don't know about you. I hunger and thirst to see things put right in the world and to have a deeper relationship with God. But it gets misdirected because I forget that it's going to be filled, that I'm going to be satisfied. And I think that can happen to all of us here as well. And Jesus has given us a promise that it will. And Jesus is trustworthy and true. But how do we live this out? Because if you're anything like me, again, sorry, I keep comparing you to me today, but you forget sermons, don't you? You kind of walk out of here, you remember it for a couple of hours, and then Monday morning comes, you meet your boss at work who has a go at you, and you think, and then it all goes to pot, don't it? You forget sermons. Or something happens in your family or in your relationships or whatever, or at work, and you get sidetracked. Has anyone ever read Pilgrim's Progress here before? Yeah? Great. So you know what I'm talking about. But basically, in Pilgrim's Progress, there's a guy called Christian, who's a Christian. And he leaves the city of destruction to go to the city of heaven. He calls it the city of celestial paradise, I think, in the book. But it's basically the city of heaven. And when he leaves the city of destruction, one of the things that keeps him focused is thinking about the city of heaven. Thinking about getting there and being there with Jesus. He's on this road at the moment where he keeps getting misdirected. Mr. Legalist tries and pulls him off over here. Mr. Immorality pulls him off over here. And then he gets temptations and trials and they try and push him off the narrow road. But one of the things that keeps him focused during these hard times in his journey is to focus on heaven. Now, may I suggest one of the things that can help us be filled, can help us to realise that we will be filled with righteousness, and so our hunger and thirst doesn't get misdirected, it's by thinking of heaven more in our daily lives. And if you're not a Christian here today, there's something inside of you that's hungering and thirsting. Why? Because you're here and you're listening to me, and trust me, you can do other better things on a Sunday than listen to me. You won't be filled at the end. That's the sad thing. I have my mate Pete. If he doesn't become a Christian, he won't be filled. And he will end up under God's judgment. But if you become a Christian and enter into God's kingdom and become a kingdom citizen, you will hunger and thirst still. But you will have the knowledge that you will be filled at the end.